Hello, and thanks for watching. Today's quick video is going to be the inspection and replacement of the Vortex Rok Shifter reeds. So again, this is the Vortex Rok Shifter, and it is one of those regular maintenance items that you do have to inspect the reeds. Each driver and racing condition is going to vary as far as how often you should inspect them. So if you're new to the Vortex Rok engine, I would inspect them every day till you get an idea of how often you actually need to replace them. So again, this is the reed, and this is the Vortex Rok. You're going to need a 5mm Allen to remove the 6 bolts for the plate. And then you're also going to need a number one, like Swedetech racing engines, number 1 screwdriver. So it's going to be a Phillips screwdriver size number 1. So if you don't have one of those, you can send your engine or your reed cage to our shop. We can replace them for you. However, you can also buy a number 1 Phillips screwdriver for your toolbox. So I've already removed a couple of the screws just so you don't have to watch me take all of them out. And as you're pulling them out, there is only about 7 to 9 millimeters worth of thread into the case. So when you're pulling them out, inspect the bolts to make sure there is no aluminum shavings or anything indicating that the threads out of the case are stripping out. We have seen that once where one of the bolts was stripping out. That's an easy fix, but again, while you're checking the reeds, that's something to look for. So you're going to pull the manifold off. And on the Vortex Rok, you have a large intake gasket that is bonded with orange RTV. And they usually use this on the case side with the black plastic stuffer. And I'll show you that here in a bit. So this is also a good time to inspect the gasket. You can usually reuse these a couple different times. We have these gaskets on shopswedetech.com. We just set that up this morning under the Vortex category. So we have the intake gaskets. So you want to look for any tears. You want to make sure the gasket is in good condition. If you're not sure, just replace it. Then you have the rubber boot. This is a great time to inspect the rubber boot. And what you want to do is you want to look in the corners right here. Look for any cracks. I almost said craps. But you want to look for any cracks or tearing on the boot. If it's damaged, cracked, or torn, replace the boot. And we will have those on Shop Swedetech later this afternoon. And here's your manifold plate. They put a beautiful little Vortex engraving on the top to indicate up. However, on this particular engine, it can go either way, up, down. It'll fit either way. So good time to check the manifold, but you'd really have to screw things up to mess that up. And when you're pulling the reeds out on any engine, if it's a new engine to you, always pay attention. So I've done this a few times. I'm familiar with it. However, if I haven't done it before, normally what I'll do is I would lay the hardware out in the order it came off the engine. So for example, I would lay the bolts here. Then I would lay the plate down, then the rubber boot, then the gasket, again, in the order that they came out if I'm not familiar with it. And then also pay attention to the reed cage. This one has a floating black plastic stuffer. So as you pull it out, take a look and see if there is an up or down. On this particular engine, it is not directional. There is no up or down. It can go in either way. But there are some engines where this part would be directional. And if the rules allowed, you could probably put a little up on the side. But again, this one doesn't matter because it's the same either way. So that's your black stuffer. Again, inspect it, but if you're messing this up, you probably have a bigger problem than just reeds. You probably had a rod failure, which we haven't seen on the Vortexes yet. So it's a good time to look that stuff over. Now the reed cage is not quite a press fit, but there's a few areas on the sides that hang up in the cases. So I like to use 2 thumbs I grab by the inside ridge here, and I just evenly pull it out. And, oh, that's kind of a surprise. Good. Okay, so this particular engine already has the 2019 reeds. So the previous version reeds, the bottom reed was split all the way down the middle. So the left and the right worked independently of each other. So that was 2018. That was a split reed, and the split reed is on the bottom. And the stiffener, we have them online. The stiffener looks like a trapezoid. So that is the 2018 version. However, 2019, they are going to require the use of the same reed for the top and the bottom, and same with the stiffener, which is a half moon stiffener. So I'll pull it out so you can see it. Now in this particular reed cage, it does have the OTK symbol right here, and that usually indicates up. So on this engine, that's the way it came out. That's the way I'm going to put it back in. Find a nice flat firm surface when you're doing any of this. And again, a number 1 Phillips screwdriver. There's 3 reed cage screws. And if anyone had just caught that, that screw was a little loose because I actually went through it a little earlier to make sure I wouldn't have any surprises. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So if we're taking the screw out, lefty-loosey. And these are only 3mm screws, small threads, into a cast aluminum type material. So this material is very soft. So you don't need 5,000 foot-pounds of torque when you're tightening the screws. And also, you need the correct number 1, say it after me, number 1 Phillips screwdriver. If you use the wrong screwdriver, you will strip out the screw tops. And not maybe, no, you will. You will strip them out. So use the right tool for the job. If you happen to strip these out, on Shop Swedetech we sell a pair of pliers called Vam pliers. And those have some serrated edges on the tips where you can grip the screw and untwist it. They're great. And we use them all the time for the track. So 3 screws, pull them out. Again, check the orientation. This particular reed was installed with this cutout. I'm using my finger for some contrast. So the cutout is in the lower left corner. Same with the reed stiffener, lower left corner. So we're inspecting the reed. This one is in good shape. The edges are nice and round, a uniform round. They're not starting to fray. They're not sharp. It's not peeling back. It's not delaminating. So that reed is in good condition. So this one is very reusable. Now, grabbing another reed, this is the split reed I was telling you about. So if you look, let's see if we get some good contrast right here. So right on the edge right here, black on black, not good contrast. Let's try blue. There we go, blue. So right here, it's starting to fray. If you feel it, it's very rough. It's jagged. And it's starting to fray here. And if you catch the angle of the reed itself, you'll notice a little bit of wear on this tip. So this reed is shot. It's not savable. You can't reuse it. It's shot. So this one did not come out of this engine. I grabbed this off the old parts shelf just to give you an example of a bad reed. So if you're wondering where did that split reed come from, it came off the shelf. But that is a bad reed. So back to the reeds. So what we're going to do is inspect the reed again. You also want to inspect the reed surface area here on the reed cage where it sits. So this one, again, it was used. I didn't clean it up. I intentionally did not want to use a brand new engine because I wanted to see if there was wear and tear, and that's why you're watching the video. So I'm just knocking a little bit of oil off of it. And you want to inspect these areas here too. You want to make sure that they're not starting to peel away. Sometimes you get debris stuck in here. You want to make sure all that's nice and clean. You want to make sure this surface is good. So with that being said, then you're going to take the reed. You're going to put it on the reed cage. It's a little sticky. Actually, let's see if we do it upside down. There we go. We'll do this one upside down. And the reason I'm doing it upside down is now it's curved away from the reed cage. You don't want that. Okay? So if it's curved away from the reed cage, just take the reed pedal, flip it over. There you go. Now it's sealed again. Now, if you have a real small air gap on the reeds, no matter if you flip it either direction, if it's less than the width of the reed, it's probably going to be okay, because as the engine draws in air, it'll go through, but then as it creates a positive pressure coming back towards the reed, then it'll seal right back up. So, again, this is bad. That's a bad gap. Is that showing up there? I believe it is. So that's a bad gap. And that is good right there. Same thing with the stiffeners. They're a little shorter, so it may be a little bit harder to see that bend or that crease, but you got to do the same thing. See it there? That's the wrong way, and it's lifted a little bit. There you go. That is the right way. All right, here is your reed plate. And on the reed plate, on this particular reed cage, the beveled edge is away from the intake. So the beveled edge is towards the top of the pyramid. And sometimes I have a little bit of a difficulty trying to do this with one hand. What I like to do is, I usually like to do the center one, and it helps if your tool has a little magnetism to it, or a magnetic tip. So it stays, oh, maybe that one doesn't. No, that one doesn't. I grabbed the wrong screwdriver. It's the right size, no magnet. So if you don't have a magnetic tip, sometimes you can just put it through the plate, hold it, make sure the reeds were right, line up all the holes. Now what you want to do when you're putting the reed screws in, don't force anything, just little twists. Just a little bit, okay? Just a little bit, and then just barely snug it up, because all we're doing is just keeping the reed on. That's all we're trying to do right this second. And we'll do it again. If I had the magnetic one, I would have been done already, but that's what I get for not checking the tool ahead of time. I was more concerned with grabbing what size? A number 1 Phillips. If you don't get anything out of this video besides that, always have the right tool for the job. The nice thing about working here at Swedetech is Snap-on. So Snap-on, if you'd like to send me a little check for a plug, I appreciate it. But Snap-on, good quality tools. So back to the reed cage. So these 3 screws, they're not stripped out. The cage is not stripped out. Everything's in good condition. And you put the reeds back on. You put the stiffeners on, the plate, and the 3 screws. Sometimes it does help if you have a flat blade screwdriver. And what you want to do is manipulate the reed pedal in a manner so it's even across the top, even on the sides. Everything looks good. And if you look through it, you don't see any air gaps or anything on the inside. Everything's nice and even here. Now this engine's getting torn down tomorrow anyway, so I'm not going to secure everything as tight as I normally would. But you're only going to use about 4 inch-pounds of torque. I have to double check the measurement. I'll post it below in the description on how much torque to use. But it's very, very, very little torque because it's a very small thread into a very soft material. So again, you don't need 5,000 foot-pounds of twerk. You want to make sure they're snug. We also have the replacement screws online. So this is the top. This is the bottom. Everything's secure. Now just go the opposite direction. OTK on the top. Make sure that's a nice firm fit. Make sure everything's nice and smooth. You're going to take your stuffer, put the stuffer in. You're going to take your gasket, new or reuse the used one. And what you could also do is you could use a little dab of RTV between the gasket and the stuffer to help minimize the vibration of the stuffer. So we have the gasket on. It'd be embarrassing if I did this backwards or wrong on live. So again, the screws, there's only about 7 or 8 millimeters worth of thread going into the case. It probably wouldn't be a bad idea to upgrade those bolts at some point. Maybe it's something I could look into. Maybe we have some blue or gold anodized ones. 5 mil Allen. Gently snug it up. I'm only going to do the 2 because again the engine's coming apart tomorrow and you probably don't want to see me sequence every single twist. Now on the Allen bolts going into the case, 7 foot-pounds. That's it. Not 5,000 foot-pounds. 7. So there you have it. The Rok Shifter reed installation and inspection. And just for a side note, since you're already working on the reeds, this is a great time to look at other stuff. Take a look at your pulse line on the sides. Make sure it's a good fit to the fuel pump. Make sure the fuel pump's not broken or the rubber grommets aren't coming off. And my favorite, spark plug wires and caps. This is how the engine came in. Oh, that was another video that I did yesterday. So someone didn't tighten the top of the spark plug, that removable nut, and now it's stuck in the cap. So that was a surprise. I didn't know that was going to happen. So tune into yesterday's video on spark plug basics. But if you look at this plug wire, it is barely threaded. So that was never really threaded on. So that's, again, we'll address that tomorrow when the engine gets torn down. But for all racers, you got to be responsible for your equipment. So these are some quick things you can check while working on your engine. So we were addressing the reeds, but the spark plug and the cap are right in front of me. Why not look at it real quick? And well, there you have it. It wasn't even threaded in. So, and let's twist. I'm probably going to drop the camera. If the spark plug is not even in focus, probably not. But yeah, there you have it. See? Would you look at that? Just look at it. So, Ed Bassmaster, YouTube him. It'll make you laugh for about 10 minutes. That was off. Completely unrelated. Sorry, I'm rambling. You guys have a great day.